How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This time it was directed by James Mangold, not Steven Spielberg, and once again stars Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones for the fifth and final time. And in this movie Indiana Jones needs to compete against the Nazis, which is pretty odd that in the odd number Indiana Jones movies, it's the Nazis that are the bad guys. It's just something that I noticed. But going against the Nazis to retrieve the other half of this dial that that he found back in World War II, and he gets the help of his goddaughter Helena Shaw, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, whose father was studying this dial, who found this part of the dial with Indy back in World War II. And this takes place in the late 1960s, takes place during the Apollo moon landing. And so the world around Indy is also changing. He's gotten a lot older. He's retiring. His students aren't as invested in his classes as they once were many years ago. They're more interested in science. There's there's a strain on his marriage right now due to certain events. And so Indy's going through a lot. And one of the things going into this movie that I was concerned about was, where do you go after he came to the Crystal Skull? Because that wasn't all that good of an Indiana Jones movie in general. Even though James Mangold is taking over as directing, Steven Spielberg still did a phenomenal job with those first three films. And Mangold's a great director, but there's also this mistrust with Lucasfilm because of how maybe not so much Lucasfilm, maybe also like Disney and Lucasfilm combined, because their handling of Star Wars, it started off very good with Force Awakens and Rogue One, and then it went downhill with The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. I did like Solo, and I do like some of the Star Wars shows, but some of them haven't exactly been all that great or stand out as much as they probably should have. So a lot of people are very hesitant. Like, is Indiana Jones going to go through the same thing that Star Wars has been going through, even with a great director like James Mangold? Overall, with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I would say that this movie is a pretty good movie that is very entertaining, that fixes some of the mistakes of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. At the same time, it's nowhere near as good as those original three Indiana Jones movies. Some people might debate that this could be better than Temple of Doom, because I know some people are mixed on Temple of Doom and don't like Temple of Doom a lot. But yeah, I would say it's definitely my fourth favorite of the Indiana Jones movies. And one of the things I will say about this movie is James Mangold still knows how to keep the spirit of Indiana Jones alive in this movie. Now, yeah, Mangold has his own style of directing. I think he's got his own themes that you see a few of them in this film. I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to spoil this. I'll do a spoiler stream on this next week to get more into detail on certain stuff. But you still have them have like some of the things you see in James Mangold movies, but it still feels like an Indiana Jones movie. He does a very good job of capturing that spirit. The Whether it's the transition scenes that happen where they're going off to a different location, you see the map showing where they're heading, the chase sequences in this film. We even get a chase sequence with Indiana Jones on a horse being chased by one of the Nazis on a motorcycle during a parade and into the subway. I thought that was actually really cool. And the handling of Indiana Jones's character. Harrison Ford probably gives his most emotional performance as Indiana Jones, because a lot's been going on with him. Life hasn't been good to him lately, and while yeah, he comes across as a grumpy old man at times, he's still Indiana Jones. He's still doing his best to try to teach his class. He still cares about archaeology. He still will do the right thing and has a sense of going up against the Nazis. See, so he's still Indiana Jones. It isn't Luke Skywalker from Star Wars: The Last Jedi, where he just tosses the lightsaber and just doesn't care. Indy still does care. It's just a lot has taken a toll on him as well. He even brings up things that happened back in Temple of Doom. That's another thing. I will say I appreciate that this movie references Temple of Doom quite a bit in this movie. He brings up stuff that happened to him. And there's also another aspect to Temple of Doom that's kind of replicated in this film. That goes along with the character Helena Shaw, which we will get into. But she has a little buddy named Teddy, who is her version of Short Round from Temple of Doom. He's not as memorable as Round, and I would say Short Round's a better character. But I would say like he does come through at the end of this film. The character Helena Shaw is the one that I'm very mixed on, and it has nothing to do with Phoebe Waller-Bridge because I know a lot of people on YouTube, the internet, Twitter have railed against her for obvious reasons. But the problem isn't the performance that she gives; it's how this character was written. For the first half of this film, I feel like this character is very unlikable. Some of the antics that she pulls results in some of Indy's friends getting killed. Minor spoiler alert, sorry I didn't give a heads up, but minor spoiler. Certain things happen that result in a lot of destruction and people getting killed. She is condescending to Indy at times. She does get better in the second half of the film. I will say her character does improve a lot. By the end of the film, I did like this character. But for the first half, this character surpassed Willie Scott as my least favorite character that pals along with Indiana Jones, unless we include the character Mac from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, who was, as I said in that review, the biggest flip flopper in any film. He's with Indy, then he sides with the Soviets, then he's with Indy again, but then like he betrays Indy at the end of the film, and he got what was coming to him. But yeah, the character Helena, while she has some really cool moments in the film, I will say she has cool moments. At times she is unlikable, but she does come through at in the second half of the film. Her character does change for the better, luckily. John Rhys Davis returns as Sala. He's not in the film a lot, but he's in the film, and when he's on the film, it's great to see his character, and he still does a very good job as Sala. That's another thing. Not only do the odd number Indiana Jones movies have the Nazis as the bad guys, they also have the character Sala in them. That's a very interesting thing. If you guys didn't realize, the odd number movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Last Crusade, and Dial of Destiny have Sala and the Nazis in them. Yeah, he's very good in the film. Antonio Banderas plays his character Ronaldo that helps Indy for a little bit in the middle of the film. He kind of feels similar to Sala. But, he's not in the film a lot, but he's another very cool new character in the movie. Mads Mikkelsen plays the villain of this film. Plays a former Nazi that's wants to dial for reasons pertaining to the Nazis. And Mikkelsen's always done a very good job when it comes to portraying the villains in movies, and he didn't disappoint in this movie. Definitely a lot better than Kate Blanchett's villain in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You know, his motivations are clear, and he's also at the beginning of the film during the World War II sequence. So right away, similar to Raiders of the Lost Ark, our villain and rival to Indiana Jones is established, and you get a look into that history between the two of them. And speaking of the beginning of the film, it's nice to see Indiana Jones take on the Nazis during World War II. We saw him face the Nazis before World War II in Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. And I would say the de aging, for the most part, looks pretty good. But when Indiana Jones is moving, when the Indiana Jones action is happening, which is still very cool to watch, although you can tell Harrison Ford, due to his older age, is limited in some scenes. But when he's able to, like, the action's very cool to watch. I will say the de aging when he's moving around, you can tell it's a bit iffy. But for the most part, for a 10 to 15 minute, I didn't really keep track of time. Opening sequence exploring Indiana Jones during World War II, it looked good for the most part. It definitely looked good. One thing that I think Disney has done pretty good with in general has been de aging, particularly with their Marvel movies, and it carries on into Indiana Jones. And John Williams' score, once again, very good. The cinematography I think looks better in this film than it did in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The lighting is back to the lighting that Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom had, where it was not bright. So it definitely mimicked that style at times. Special effects also looked better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They do bring up the absence of Mutt Williams in this film. And the way they handled it, I was surprised that they went with that approach. I'm not going to spoil it until the spoiler stream, but I like what they did with it. And it also explained why Indiana Jones is the way that he is, why things haven't been working out with his marriage with Marion. So I like the angle that they went with Mutt Williams. It isn't like, oh, Mutt who? Like, that they just completely wrote off this character. They explain why Mutt isn't around, and I think that was a pretty good way of handling it. It's a sad way of handling it, but I think it was the right approach with this direction of Indiana Jones that you're going with. There's a scene underwater where they're diving. I thought that was very cool to watch. You got the other typical Indiana Jones stuff besides the chase sequences and transitions, dealing with bugs, uh, going into old ruins. I mean, Mangold did a very good job of capturing it. The film does feel like it goes long at times. I'm not saying you don't need certain stuff in the film, but you could have maybe trimmed down some stuff. As much as I love the beginning scene, opening scene, you could have maybe trimmed that down a little bit. There's also some stuff in the middle of the film. Another minor spoiler alert. We kind of see it that scene in the trailers where Indiana Jones takes out the whip and confronts these people who also want the dial, and then a chase sequence ensues afterwards. That probably could have been cut down as well. I felt like at times that dragged on a lot longer, and it didn't need to drag on. So there was some scenes that you could have trimmed down. Not saying cut entirely, just trimmed down. The third act, I will say the third act is probably the craziest third act in an Indiana Jones movie. Even crazier than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. However, I will say, as crazy as this third act was, it still made more sense than the third act, the crazy stuff that happened in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I just was never on board with having aliens in the Indiana Jones universe. And with this style, what the stuff that happens with the dial in the third act, I'll get more into that in my spoiler stream. As crazy as it is, makes more sense to happen in the Indiana Jones universe than aliens being in the Indiana Jones universe and flying saucers. And as crazy as it is, I enjoyed the heck out of it. I didn't mind it one bit. I know it comes a long way from the first time I watched Raiders, where the stuff with the Ark killing the Nazis, melting their faces off, exploding their faces, kind of turned me off at first, but over time I've grown accustomed to it and have enjoyed it. Here, I didn't mind it one bit, and the movie end. You think the movie's gonna end in a certain way because it looks like it's heading in that direction, but then it goes a completely different direction and ends on a solid note for the Indiana Jones franchise. The ending put a big smile on my face, and overall, Harrison Ford was great. The cast was pretty good for the most part. While Phoebe Waller-Bridge did give a good performance, the way her character was written, Helena was written for the first half annoyed me. Second act, they luckily fixed that character, and she became a very likable character. They could have trimmed down on some stuff. The de aging was a bit iffy when the characters are moving, but overall looked pretty good. The way they capture the late 1960s looked great. They always do a good job of capturing the time period uh that these Indiana Jones movies take place in, exploring that the world is different from the world in Raiders, Temple of Doom, The Last Crusade, even in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And while this isn't as good as Raiders, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade, it's still very entertaining. It's a much better ending to Indiana Jones than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I highly recommend you check this film out. I'm gonna give Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny a B. I want to go more into this movie, but I feel like I'm gonna need a spoiler stream to get more into it. So I'll probably do a spoiler stream, hopefully on Monday at the earliest, to get more into detail on certain things. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, what are your thoughts on Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And where would this rank for you in your Indiana Jones list? For me, it ranks number 4, way above Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, below Temple of Doom. Raiders and Last Crusade are still miles ahead of those two movies. But yeah, let me know down below what you think. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe or share this with someone that likes Indiana Jones movies. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.